Hello, everyone. My name is Denis Baril, and I run a company called the Grant Sherpa. Today, what I'm going to share with you is how, as a business, whether you're a startup or you're a scaling company, how to leverage grants, which are considered non-dilutive funding, to support the growth of your business. Today, what I'm going to cover is just understanding how grants are formed and where the money comes from, how to leverage money to grow your business, and then having a planned strategy. So I'm just going to start my presentation. So yeah, thanks for having me. And first of all, I just want to talk about how I got into this. So a number of years ago, 2015 in Alberta is based where I'm based. We had kind of the first challenge in oil and gas. And at that time, half my business disappeared. And so at that time, it not only affected me, but affected the whole group of companies that I had built a business network around. And so I wanted to do some research into figuring out how the government is investing in businesses. And that's how I stumbled into running a business to support entrepreneurs and scaling companies in Canada, how to leverage the money to support the growth of their business. It was kind of an organic thing that developed, and from it became this unique business where I'm able to serve companies across Canada in understanding not only what grants are out there, but how to approach the grants and write them in a way and create them in a way so that you can have a better chance of success in capturing the money and saving your time in the process. So the first thing I want to talk about is, where do you find money to support the growth of your business? Typically there's, and this is kind of a general assessment of business and funding. So there's your capital, your investment. It may be friends and family as well. There's bank funding to support your business, investors, and grants. Typically, people want to start with the grant bucket, also called non-dilutive funding, because it means you don't have to give up equity for your business. So it's money that the government will give you to support money that you're matching to invest in your business. So a lot of people will start with grants because it's the best funding, and then you move towards different areas of funding to support your business. For example, banks are another, for the most part, except for their capital investment side, the banks are another great way to kind of take a look at investing in fueling your business because they are non-dilutive as well. When you move towards investor capital, again, you're giving up equity or shares or access to future investment in your company. And most companies, what they try to do is they try to maximize their capital, grants, and potentially bank funding before they engage in investor funding, because your value of your business will go up the more you develop and the more you put into it. So the biggest thing that I want people to understand when they're taking a look at grants is, where do they come from, right? Why did the government create these funding pools? And the biggest is to spark economic growth, depending on the region. So in Canada, we have multiple regions across the country, and they're taking a look at what is the need in this and what's our focus in our economic region. So in Saskatchewan, as an example, there's mining, there's agriculture, there's a new tech startup community. There's a lot of innovation. So the government would then kind of pivot to kind of build resources to support your sector. And that happens across Canada. So really pay attention to what's the government investing in. And it often comes out when you take a look at where provincial budgets are being launched. That's another time when you want to take a look at where the government's investing in the year that you're kind of growing your business, or the year that the money is coming out. That's a good time. Even with the federal budget launching, every time the federal budget launches in April, it's talking about some of the new areas where the money is going to be invested. A very important time to pay attention to. There's money for-profit and nonprofit, so it depends on the design of your business. There's often more for-profit in specific business areas versus nonprofit, who are typically project-based or some specific openings a few times a year for you to apply. grants are very specific. So I've tried to challenge this a couple times, but realized that it's futile, because when they have, governments have mandates, and so their mandates are to fit certain categories and certain services within a specific time frame, age group, etc. So you have to fit. You have to, when you're applying for grants, you have to fit the exact criteria. You can't change the rules. They also are looking for certain metrics to measure whether or not you're going to reach the targets that they're looking for. So it's important to understand that. Again, federal and provincial economic growth influences where the money is going and what's triggered even within the scope of a year for a province or a country. Important to pay attention there. And the majority of funding starts in April, April to March. April is when the federal budget gets launched annually. And after that, the money starts to float down to the provinces. So the grant model, each funder, so when the federal government and provincial government start investing in programs, they fund it to agencies who then distribute it, and each might have a different engagement model in terms of what they want and what they want to see. So you'll see some variance in terms of that. There is some standardized documentation that people are looking for. We help people streamline how they gather that information ahead of time so they're ready when opportunities open. But again, it's important to understand each funder's terms and what they're looking for. You need to follow, I say, how you sell what you're doing to the funders is important based on the steps that they're looking for. And you know, the more you follow the steps that they've set out, the easier it will be for you to kind of increase your chances of collecting money from a grant program. Relationships matter as well. Some are more triggered. So some of the federal programs in the research space, the advisor is the one that has the decision-making authority sometimes to move your project and grant forward. Other times it's a committee behind the scenes that's going to be investing. So understanding who the funder is, what's their process, and who's actually making the final decision on the funding is important to know as well. I also suggest as a strategy, because each grant has sometimes some criteria and some specific focuses that they're looking to operate. Sometimes websites aren't necessarily updated. So if you have a chance to reach out to a funder to find out, number one, you know, is the program or project that you're talking about or the hiring you're doing, is it a fit for what they have to offer this year? Is there any specific changes to it? Again, it just gives you insight into the funding opportunity that's ahead of you. Knowing your numbers. I think again, you know, when we talk about this, it's knowing, you know, not only, you know, what is the market opportunity for your business, but how are you going to be impacting the economy? It could be numbers such as, you know, if it's a climate change activity, you want to know what your GHG impact is. If it's hiring, you want to know how you're going to impact the economy, both provincially and federally. If you're going to be hiring and scaling your company, if you know the market opportunities, the local market, but then provincial, maybe international markets as well, those numbers and metrics really have an impact. So how I look at helping people look at what grants may fit, there's a couple of ways that you want to take a look at your company. So for those that are operating their business already, you want to take a look at what are the operational challenges we have. You know, maybe there's a way, you know what, we're inputting. It could be the system that you're engaging people in terms of fast tracking how you're getting people into your funnel so that you can convert them into clients. It could be the talent that you're trying to find. Can we find talent? Are we not finding talent? Are there other resources or supports that can help us find talent? Should we kind of build our funnel by hiring students and then finding students that could fit and work with us once they graduate? It could be that also your company is not really tapping into new markets. So if you want to go to other provinces to kind of build your business, or you want to go international, understanding where the best market might be for your product and service might be another area that you want to explore. So what we do is talk to executive leaders and owners of companies just to talk about the big landscape of their business and what their business need might be for all these areas in order to best help maximize what the funding is. So now just getting into the types of grants. So as I mentioned, it's to kind of serve the regional priorities of Canadian marketplaces. And so they typically have money in these buckets. So R&D is research and develop. It's probably the largest bucket of money, and it's really to help support innovation. So typically what they look for in innovation is an opportunity that hasn't been done before. So something they're looking for a lot of the times they're looking for technology or sometimes some type of new development that is innovative. One of the ways they look at that is, can you qualify it for intellectual property, a patent, or trades, or protect that innovation by trade secrets? When we take a look at, if you hear in the news, a lot of the competition in terms of where countries are in terms of their IP and patents often sets the stage for who's leading globally as an economy. So the government relies heavily on investing in businesses that have that ability to capture that intellectual property within the business. And within the R&D space, there's money to hire, there's money to sometimes capture IP and intellectual property. There's sometimes money to hire research and development people to help you with that, contractors perhaps to develop your R&D. There's a whole gamut of different resources. And again, understand that each province may have different resources. One of the things that, before I move on to these other grants, one of the areas that is really important to understand is there's federal grants and then there's provincial grants. Federal grants are available to everyone. Sometimes they have regional conditions because they're feeding a certain economic play in a province. And then there's provincial grants. And in that provincial space, in order to capture those grants in a province, you have to be registered in that province in order to capture the money. So if you're in Saskatchewan, and you're looking at grants and you're thinking, hey, I just heard that there's 100% funding for people if you hire people in BC, and you're wanting to capture that money, you have to be actually registered in the province in order to capture that money. And some of the grants also require that you be registered for up to 2 years. So from a perspective of funding, what you want to do is kind of figure out what you're going to do for your business, not necessarily chase the grants, but if you are thinking about expanding, explore where the grants might be that could support the scaling of what you're trying to achieve. And you may want to formally register in a couple of provinces across Canada based on your expansion plans. So training, there's dollars across Canada to train employees and also for small business owners as well. So again, it depends each province, again, has different rules around this. So we'll talk about the employee piece. So there's money to train employees. It's to upscale employees. It's on average between $5,000 and $10,000 per employee. And on average, it's 67% reimbursed. In some provinces, if you hire unemployed people, you can capture up to $10,000 to $15,000, and it's 100% reimbursed. There's a process in terms of how you have to follow it to capture that money. But again, if your company is growing and you're missing the skills, or you're thinking about hiring somebody and they're missing out a skill set, you may want to capture some of this money to be able to train them. Some provinces have also made it available to owners of companies to be able to access. So as a small business enterprise, if you're a startup and you have 4 or less employees, including the shareholders. So the shareholders counts as the employee count. If you have 4 or less, you may be able to access that money to train yourself and get 67% of those dollars back. Again, you have to look at the provincial rules or the places where you're registered. The training dollars as well is training dollars where the employee is living. So if you have employees across Canada, but you're only registered provincially in Saskatchewan, you can only use those dollars to train the people in Saskatchewan. It's very tied to the province. So to capture the most money is you would have to be provincially registered where your employees are living. Lots of questions. It's a very complicated one, but there is some great money to support the training and upskilling of your employees. Export dollars. There's money to help you build business outside of Canada. Really what this is designed to do is for companies that are making over $100,000 in their last tax filing. So if you reach over that $100,000 mark, line 101, I believe in the GST, your GST form, if it shows over $100,000, then you can capture this money. There's an interest in supporting women as well. So there's an advantage to being a women business owner in this space as well. And there could be some additional supports. They also have some activities where they do events where they help women to trade events focused on helping them grow internationally as well. But in this money, there's up to $50,000 to support your project. It's matched at 50%. So just as an example, if you were to pitch a project that's $100,000 and the government approved it, they potentially could match it at 50%, so $50,000 to do that project and expand. The kinds of activities that you can use are doing market research to understand, let's just talk about the USA, for example. If you're going to expand to the USA, who are the clients, where are the clients, what's the price point that you should be positioning at, understanding your competition, all those kinds of things. What are the factors that might impact your expansion into that country, the rules, regulations, certifications, all those kinds of things could be part of a market research report. It could be hiring the marketing consultant to help you figure out how to position your product in that international market. It could be videos, it could be online advertising, it could be traveling to conferences, to pay for conference fees, travel and hotel, those kinds of costs. Could be legal or IP costs when you're going into that international market. So there's a variety of things you could use it to help you gain traction in that international market. Today, what they're looking for is basically a project on selling the government why this is a value and how you're going to actually successfully launch into that international marketplace. There's also dollars to hire employees. So it's not to hire contractors, it's just employees. And so there's money in different buckets. So there's money to hire students. There's money, right now, the money in 2022 is around $5,000 to hire a student. If you hire someone in an unrepresented market, it's now up to $7,000 and it's 70% supported or funded by grants. So if you hire just anyone in the student space, they need to be registered at a college or university. It's 50% matched up to $5,000. If it's someone in an underrepresented market, again, it's up to $7,000 and 70% reimbursed. There's also dollars coming shortly that will be to hire junior roles. They're people between the ages of 18 and 30, again, from a graduate from a college or university this time. And on average, it's about $25,000. And it's, it's probably going to be, again, the new terms are being set, excuse me, but it's probably going to be about 50% matching. Excuse me. The government has also created, and again, this is only going to be around probably for 2022, a new program to help businesses expand and scale up their company. They're looking for, it ranges from startup to scale ups, but in startups, they're looking for startups that actually are making revenue, not just startups who have an idea and are using it to just do R&D. They're looking to help you grow and expand. So if you can show that you have a market that fits their key criteria, some of them are climate change, it could be digitization of your business and industry, it could be underrepresented groups that have a market opportunity in another country, and fast growth companies as well. And so basically it works kind of like, it's a loan, it's a zero interest loan, but it's like a grant. It's structured like a grant. So they're looking for matched funding to achieve this program. And what it is let's say your project is $1 million. What they'll say is, okay, we'll help you fuel that project. We'll provide 500,000. You show us you have 500,000, and then we'll help you move this project forward. And so the value of this is that, you know, for companies that are growing and expanding, it can go back to 2021, April 19th, 2021, and your project can go to 2024 with a payback period in 2025. So when I talked about, you know, 4 buckets of money and talking about, you know, grants are the best because they're non-dilutive, this expansion program is also non-dilutive and a great way to leverage kind of zero interest loan funding to be able to help your business grow and expand. Again, each region is operating this, and it can be a little different depending on your business. The terms also are favorable to First Nation Indigenous businesses because they may be able to advocate to get a higher percentage. Instead of the 50-50 match, they may be able to go up to 70% matched loan for this program. There's another group of funding called super clusters. And again, it's really designed to help 2 to 3 companies in a certain type of business come together, or in industry come together to create a solution and innovation for different purposes. The kind of super clusters are in the key areas where the government's investing: agriculture, artificial intelligence, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, digitization, and oceans. And so I think that's all of them. I may have missed one, but so what it is 2 to 3 businesses come together to create a solution, and they're very specific rules. So typically what you would want to do is come together as a team and figure out what is our project, and then try to book a meeting with an advisor in one of those super clusters to see where you fit. Sectors, again, there's types of grants that come through sectors. So it could be agriculture, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, digitization. It could be energy, clean tech, green tech, anything environment. One of the things that I really encourage people to do is, depending on the sector that you're in, you may want to be sign up to be a member of a certain association, because often those people in that association may know when the sector grants come out. And so if you follow their newsletter, you may be alerted to some of those things as they happen. Again, it's another way how the government distributes funding. There is a whole range. If you're a First Nations or Indigenous or Métis business, there's a whole range of different resources that may fit for you, depending again on the sector you're in, where you're located in the country, and what you're needing the money for. So there's also different options for First Nations business, which is awesome. There's also challenge projects. Just to kind of give you an idea, sometimes the government will put on a challenge because they have a gap in the market or have a need. It could be led by Department of National Defense, for example, who just came out with 6 different kinds of challenge projects. Or it could be led by just an organization who's given a pool of money to say, hey, we're looking for a clean tech solution in water, and we really want to find out who's got some solutions here that we could invest in. Just so you know, challenge projects are a little more difficult because there's typically a lot more competition in this space. And so although it may be great, it requires a ton of preparation and a lot of risk. So it just depends what stage of business you're at, whether or not you fit the challenge, and whether you have the right partnerships aligned to support that challenge. The last thing I just want to mention on the side here is the tax rebates and shred, which is really created provincially. It's funded federally and provincially, but there's different percentages based on the province you're in. So tax rebates are really meant to support the research and development side of your business. So I don't particularly invest in this. There's specific companies that I can refer you to who are experts in this area. When you're going after creating this, what you need to do is think about ahead of time how you're going to track the time you invest in research and development. So it could be owner's times every day. It could be the equipment costs you're paying. It could be for the things that you test and try and fail at. All those kinds of costs can be wrapped into going back 18 months in your company to collect that money to fuel that further research and development. If people have questions about, I can make referrals in this space. Again, the other piece that's really important to think about too, and the value of being a business based in Saskatchewan, and I don't have it on the chart here, but is the tax advantage for investors. Saskatchewan probably has the best opportunity for you to attract investors because there's a tax credit that Saskatchewan offers that has a huge advantage for you as well, and you want to check that out. So what I want you to think about is how you're selling the story to the government matters. These are the kind of things that they're looking for, such as, understanding your market size, revenue projections, who is your client, how you're going to sell, how you're attracting investment into your business. If you've already captured investment, who's the owners, who are the advisors, how are you creating jobs, and do you have intellectual property for your company? These are all the selling features that you need to be aware of. And this is just kind of giving you an overview of some of the key factors that are really going to help you get an advantage over other people who are applying for funding. Talking about how companies or how organizations evaluate grants. Now, each funder may have a different process, but they're looking for some key things. So relevance in the industry, relevance to the grant itself. Do you fit the criteria within the grant, and are you in their space? Is it innovation? Is the innovation, if it's in the research space, is it game changing? And can you explain what that means? How it's gonna really impact the markets? How is it benefit to the economy? Can you create jobs? Are you gonna create revenue? Is there a ripple effect with what you're doing? Jobs is number one in most of the grants. What's the return of investment? So if they invest this money, are your projections big enough for them to see that there's value in investing in you? They're typically not investing in mom and pop shops, especially in the larger dollar research. They're looking for companies that have this scale up potential within their business. Do you understand the risks of your business and how you're going to create a plan B to address those risks? That you have a team of experts to be able to see the growth of this company happen. They often, especially in the capital raise space, the other thing that they look for is, can you handle conflict? How does your team get along? That typically is one of those things that people are looking for, is how do you manage this? Do you know each other? Do you have the right skill set? And where are the gaps in your skill set that you're looking to hire out? Understanding that you know that is really valuable. Although it's hard for startups in particular to understand their buyer's mindset, government is really looking to know, okay, so great that you have an idea, great that you're taking this business to market, but do you know who the market is? Have you talked to? Do you have connections? Do you have your expertise is in this specific market so you know who the buyers are? It's a really, really important thing to keep in mind at the start of your business, not waiting till you actually commercialize. And the last thing that's super important is grants are typically matched in terms of funding, so you have to have money to make money. Top mistakes is that you just spray and pray, I call it, applications. You just send the same information out and don't really communicate to what the funder's looking for. You're missing information, so it's important to have someone else oversee the applications that you're writing so you get the story right. Having the wrong people pitch, especially in the innovation space. So typically when you're pitching to innovation funders, they're typically engineering minds. So you want to pitch the technology, not necessarily just the business idea. People that try to apply for everything and they don't qualify, if you've ever done this, you realize how much time you waste. It's really, really important to focus on the ones that really matter to your business. Not prepared and miss deadlines. That's common because sometimes things will surface and the money's very competitive today. So really, really important that you have some key things prepared in advance and that you don't miss the deadlines so you get an opportunity to capture the money. The last thing is not having a return of investment that's big enough. So when you're communicating to government, they want to see that you have scale potential and that you're going to create a bigger percentage of jobs. And just remember, today the money is super competitive, so the bigger picture you can sell, the better. Trends are collaborating, businesses coming together, helping people streamline their IP. So IP, intellectual property, is really important for the government today. That there's global forces impacting local markets, much like I had to pivot when I first started my business because the oil and gas market was changing and affecting all the businesses. It's really important that you think about who is the global forces connected and understand what is happening on a global space within our industry, within your industry, and how could that impact you, and staying in touch with that. Diversity in hiring. Again, diversity is huge. So again, women, unrepresented groups, people with disabilities. These are all things that the government is saying, hey, we really care about this, and it's often on checklists now of every grant that you apply for. Nationalism. So as we know, COVID had an impact on all companies in our supply chains and will continue. Even the unrest we're seeing in the world in wars right now, people are having a hard time capturing parts. So the government is also looking for how are people looking at how we can capture that supply chain for our products more closer to home. It could be North America, it could be Canada. Focus on clean, green, and environment. As we know, we're trying to achieve environmental targets by 2030. And so the government is looking for creative ways and businesses that really support those initiatives. And lastly, the government really invests more so in helping you, which is interesting. There's more funds available to help you go global than there is to go national, although there are some resources to help you scale. It's really, really important to think about not just, they realize, and the reason is this, is that Canadian marketplace is one market, right? We know that we have access to global markets, and the government has incredible resources. I think there's 160 offices around the world in global affairs to help us grow our businesses in the international marketplace. That's another area I focus on with my clients, is trying to help them make those right connections so they can get on the ground information about the possibility of starting a business elsewhere. So just to wrap up, I want to talk about the importance of a grant plan and how you're going to capture money. Understanding what is the list of what you want money for. Is it a grant activity? Could it be a business loan? Could it be a capital investor that you need that money for? Trying to figure out where that money lands, and then where to go for that funding. Again, is it something you can get a grant for, or do you have to go outside of grants to kind of get that activity funded? And then the timelines. Understand that grant money is not fast money. So when you're looking at fast money, you're looking at friends and family rounds. You may look at bank loans as faster money. But grants take time. So on average, it could be 3 to 6 months, right? A process that it may take you to capture that money. So there's a lot of planning that needs to go on in your business to ensure that, maybe 3 to 6 months down the road, you could capture that money. Sometimes the hiring grants might be a little quicker, but on average, I want people to start thinking about planning for your annual grant solution for your business. I want to thank you today for taking the time to listening to the ideas related to how to use grants to grow your business. If you have any questions, reach out. My email's attached. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to connect. Have a great day, and thanks so much for your time.